Well, this is the first Monday of October, which means brand new content is releasing today. And I'm so excited that you are here with us today. Wherever you're listening or watching from, we are so excited that you are here. Today, I want to talk about trust. Trust, it's complicated, or is it? As a leader, it's your responsibility to build, create, and maintain a culture of trust. And so on today's episode, I'm calling this Trust Issues. Well, hey, what is up? Welcome to episode number 4 of the Brian Wood Leadership Podcast. Listen, before we dive in, I just want to say thank you so much. I have had so much fun with this. I've enjoyed it. It's truly a passion of mine, and your encouraging words and comments and sharing and subscribing, all of that goes along with it has just meant so much to me. I'm actually blown away by the level of just encouragement and input and feedback that I've received. And so thank you. If you haven't already, please follow the show on the podcast. If you are watching on YouTube, I would love for you to subscribe. And then obviously, if this adds value to you, please share it with your coworkers, your friends, your bosses, whoever you may think will add value to their life as well. It would mean so much to me if you would do that. And so today, on episode number 4, trust issues. Man, trust, it's so complicated again, or is it? And I'm not here to actually argue that point. I just want to kind of stir the pot and get us thinking, because here's what I do know about trust. There was a study in the Neuroscience of Trust, that was the title of it, in a 2017 Harvard Business Review written by a professor by the name of Paul Zak. And this study compared people with low trust companies to people at high trust companies, and the report was astounding. People at high trust companies, the report 74% had less stress, 106% had more energy at work, 50% higher productivity, 13% fewer sick days, 76% more engagement, and 29% more satisfaction with their lives. And last but not least, 40% less burnout. And so I share that with you as I talk about this statement, this rhetorical question of, is trust complicated or not? I don't really need to argue that with you, because honestly, whether you believe it's complicated or not, it's not as important as ensuring as a leader that you are building trust. We all have trust issues, and some of us are on one side of the coin, and some of us are on the other because of life experiences, because of things that has happened to us. But as a leader, it is your responsibility to ensure that whatever you are leading, the environment, the relationships, the culture is surrounded and inundated with trust. And so today I want to give you 3 principles on trust that I believe will apply to any leadership relationship, whether personal or organizational. And so before we do, I want to give you kind of this mental picture that I'm going to use as an illustration throughout the show today. And the illustration is simply, I want you to visualize 2 buckets, and the buckets are exactly the same. The buckets are labeled trust, and the contents of that bucket inside of both of them is trust. The difference is that one bucket is labeled deposit and one bucket is labeled withdrawal. All right, does that make sense? We got 2 buckets. They're the same. Trust is what is in them. One is for deposits, one is for a withdrawal. All right, keep that mental image in your mind. We're going to bring that back as we go through the show. Write this down if you're taking notes. Number 1, trust starts with you. Trust starts with you. As a leader, it's your responsibility to build, create, and maintain a culture of trust. And there are so many layers to this. I just want to give you 2 to try to challenge you and get you thinking about how and why trust starts with you. The first one is this, and we're going to go ahead and stir the pot, is trust is given, not earned. Trust is given, not earned. And I know some of you right now are pushing back on this, and I am so glad because I hope that I can challenge you. And I'm not necessarily trying to persuade you to think the way that I think, but I didn't always think this way. And I learned from multiple high capacity leaders that have developed me indirectly and some that have developed me directly. I learned this principle: trust is given, it's not earned. Now, this doesn't apply to every relationship. This really applies to you and I meeting for the first time and creating a relationship, knowing that I am going to be a leader in your life. So maybe it's a new hire, maybe it's a new coworker, maybe it's a new community or business partner, maybe it's a new coach for your kids' team. It's a new relationship. And as I enter into this new relationship, it's my responsibility as a leader, it starts with me, to give you trust from the beginning rather than making you earn it. And I know that is so challenging. Why? Because we have trust issues. And for many of us, we've been burned. Our trust has been broken in other relationships. And so we are not going to be so gullible or vulnerable or whatever word you want to use there to say, hey, yeah, I'm going to give this complete stranger trust. We're going to say, no. You're going to show me that I can trust you. You're going to show me that you want to earn my trust. Now, when I say trust is given and not earned, I'm not talking about reckless trust, right? I'm not going to meet you for the first time and then tomorrow say, okay, my wife and I are going on a trip. Come on over to my house and I want you to watch my kids all weekend, right? Like, there's levels to trust. However, I want to start by giving you some rather than making you earn it. Because here's what it does. If you think about our bucket, right? If you think about our two buckets, if I make you earn it, your deposit bucket is empty. So you are starting off with nothing. But if I give you some, I'm going to place deposits of trust already in that bucket. And imagine the difference in the way this relationship can start. I'm not looking at you from this critical, you better earn your trust type perspective. I'm looking at you the way that I should if I was in a healthy, trusting relationship with you from the very beginning. And so what happens is, as you're leading that person, and again, in whatever capacity it is, remember, leadership is influence. So you don't have to be my employee. I don't have to be your boss. Maybe we're a coworker. Maybe you're my boss. There's so many different relationships where we still have influence and get to lead. But if I give you trust rather than making you earn it, the relationship starts off better, the connection starts off better, and I'm going to assume, and sometimes that's dangerous, but in the aspect of trust, I'm going to assume that you can do your job, you're going to be a great asset to the team, you can coach my kid or whatever it may be until you've proved me otherwise. And so the perspective has shifted. I'm going to trust you until you break it, rather than I'm not going to trust you until you earn it. This allows us to view those people the way that we should. It allows us to empower them the way that we should. It allows us to trust them the way that we should without making them earn it. We talk a lot about first impressions in life. What if one of those first impressions was, I'm going to trust you from the get-go? And so it starts with you as a leader, and trust is given, not earned. The second layer that I'm going to talk about with this, and this is kind of quick, is be consistent. Trust starts with you. Be consistent. I almost said here, do what you say you're going to do. Like be a man or a woman of your word. And that's so true. But I think trust starts with you is more than just following through with your word. Because people love consistency. People hate change, whether it's small change, whether it's drastic change. And I say that lightly because I actually push back on that statement a little bit. We like change when we can be in control of it and we're the one changing things. We don't like change when it doesn't make sense to us, or it's not exactly the change that we desire. But on the flip side of that, not to chase a rabbit trail, people like consistency. They like things to be stable and steady. And the more consistent you are as a leader, the more trust that you build. If you say you're going to do something, do it. If you want people to be on time, you be on time. If you have a weekly meeting scheduled every single month, don't cancel 2 of them. If you tell people they can talk to you, that you have an open door policy, make it easy for them to talk to you. It's consistency. And I was debating whether I was going to say this or not. And I think I'm going to, with the preface / caveat of understanding you cannot use this as an excuse. However, if we look at it through the right lens, I think it's actually a little bit freeing. At least it is for me. We are human beings, right? We're leaders, but we're humans, and which means that we're imperfect. We make mistakes. And so I think we also can be consistent in our weaknesses. All right. And I'm going to try to explain this quickly again without allowing us to use this as an excuse. But there are some things that I'm just not wired to be great at. Like I have weaknesses as a leader. And again, I'm not going to make an excuse and not be a high level, high capacity leader because of it, or at least strive to be. However, if someone knows my weakness and I'm consistent with that, it's much easier for me to build trust with them knowing, hey, this is an area that Brian is just not great at. And time again, he does the same thing. He's consistent with it. Again, I'm not trying to make excuses or allow us to make excuses and say, hey, that's just the way I am. I always show up late and you're just going to have to deal with it. Like we want to improve. We want to get better. But all I'm saying is be consistent as a leader, because what happens is when you build trust, because it starts with you, and by building that, you are consistent. It will allow that relationship where you've already given them trust instead of making them earn it. Now you're consistent. It will create this environment and culture of trust in your workplace, in your job, in your home, in that relationship. And so give trust, don't make them earn it, and be consistent, because trust starts with you. All right, number 2. Clear expectations build trust. Clear expectations build trust. And this is one of the biggest issues that I believe with trust breaking down, is when expectations aren't clear. Like if I have a conversation with you, if I'm leading you and I ask you to do something and the expectations aren't clear, then we are actually tearing down and breaking down trust rather than building it. I'll go a little bit further with that. If I ask you to do something, I'm your leader, and I say, hey, I want you to do X, Y, and Z. What's going to happen if I don't give them clear expectations, or you clear expectations? You are going to hear me. Then you are going to filter what I am saying through your mindset, through your perspective. You're going to process it the way that you think, interpret it the way that you think, and then execute based off of that. Oftentimes, you and I don't think alike. And so if I tell you something without giving you expectations that are very clear, oftentimes our end results will be different. And then when I ask you to do something without clear expectations and you finish it and the final product is different than what I expected, now trust is broken. I don't trust you as much anymore because you didn't deliver in what I expected you to deliver on. You didn't get to the end result like I asked you to and wanted you to. But here is the problem. We want to break trust with them and blame it on them, when as a leader, if we didn't give clear expectations, guess who it's on? It's on us. It's on us. And so if we look at the opposite of that is that this clear expectation builds trust. I ask you to do something. I give you clear expectations on what the end result should be. After that, I don't really care what you do and how you do it to get there, but you know what the goal is. It's the same as what my goal is. You execute, and now the end result, it's symmetrical. It looks exactly the way that I wanted it to look. And guess what happens? Trust is now being built. I trust you because you executed very well. And you trust me because you got to meet the expectations of your leader because I gave them to you. I empowered you to execute and reach the end goal exactly the way that I had this in mind. And now trust is being built. Expectations is so essential. Like, don't miss what I'm saying. This is so huge because expectations are what's going to define the end result, and it's what builds trust in the relationship. And so clear expectations will build trust, create a better environment and culture, and minimize frustrations, as well as empower those that we are leading. It allows the relationship, if we think about our buckets, to make trust deposits, not withdrawals. Right? Like, think about your bank account. I would much rather have a deposit than somebody taking some money out, right? And this is what clear expectations does. It allows me and you together to put deposits in your trust bucket, which builds trust. Every time expectations are clear, the one you are leading follows through. A little bit of trust is deposited into that deposit bucket. Trust starts with you, and expectations builds trust. And last but not least, number 3, trust can be rebuilt. Trust can be rebuilt. Now, I want to flip the coin over for just a moment because I feel like I need to say this. I also feel like somebody needs to hear this. So let me speak very clear. I said trust can be rebuilt, not it has to be rebuilt, okay? Oftentimes, patterns speak louder than potential. And there are going to be people in your life where the withdrawal bucket and the deposit bucket are absolutely depleted because time and time again, they have proven themselves untrustworthy. And you have got to make a decision on that. If it's a coworker, you need to talk to your immediate supervisor and take action steps. If it's an employee, you got to let them go. If it's a family member, you got to figure something else out because now it becomes really complicated. But if we've done everything possible to rebuild trust and we can't, then again, patterns speak louder than potential. And lastly, before we flip the coin back over and talk about what I want to talk about, and this is maybe the most important, if you or a loved one are in danger or unsafe and you are with someone you cannot trust and you are in harm, you got to take action immediately. And so don't hear me say, stay there and try to rebuild trust. Again, trust can be rebuilt. It doesn't have to be. All right. So let's flip the coin over and let's look at things through that perspective. What if we viewed relationships where trust had been broken as a real possibility of rebuilding that trust? Like, we're going to develop them. We're going to mentor them. We're going to coach them. We're going to lead them. Because here's what happens is oftentimes in life, people break their trust with us just one time, maybe twice if we give them one more chance. They break that trust and we immediately write them off, and we have no desire or perspective of rebuilding that trust. We're like, I'm done. You broke your trust with me once and I am done. And again, sometimes that's necessary, right? Like sometimes you use wisdom and discernment and you make that decision. But I believe there are a lot of relationships where people have been written off, especially people that we lead, who we have an opportunity to develop and mentor and coach and influence, but we have written them off because they made one mistake and they broke their trust with us. And we just say, okay, like what if we said, okay, they messed up. Guess what? I do too. I make mistakes. That's why we have those two buckets. It's not just one where we just dump it all out. We have withdrawals, we have deposits, and it goes back and forth. I can be one of the best leaders in the world, but guess what? I'm still going to have withdrawals of trust out of my bucket in certain relationships because I'm not perfect. I'm not going to follow through. I'm not going to, meet somebody's expectations. Like, it happens. And so oftentimes it's called grace, and I'm not going to preach a sermon here, but oftentimes we want grace, but we don't want to extend it to anybody else. So what if we looked at relationships where, hey, I think we can rebuild this relationship? And so I'm going to give you a couple ways really quick, just some really tangible, practical examples just to kind of get your minds going. Not saying you have to do this exactly, but ways that we rebuild trust, they start small. Okay, I'm going to give you just a couple. Hey, listen, you've been showing up 10 minutes late. You're breaking trust, and I need you to be here 5 minutes early. You make it very clear. You give them expectations, and you allow them to start rebuilding that trust. Hey, I need you to send off this email by 12 o'clock noon today or tomorrow or whatever it is. Very clear, very small task, but it's very direct. Or, hey, I need you to take the trash out by 5 p.m. this evening. Very clear, very small. But here's what happens. It's a small task that allows them to rebuild trust with you. However, if they don't follow through, it's such a small task that it doesn't impact the organization or the thing that you're leading in a significant way. Does that make sense? And so I just gave you a few, but here's the principle behind it. Give them small things that will allow them to start rebuilding trust with you, to place those deposits back in the bucket without hurting the organization or whatever it is you're leading if they don't follow through. And then after that, if they don't, obviously take action, but give them an opportunity to rebuild trust. Trust issues, we all have them. We all have them. We all have them. But as leaders, it's our responsibility. It starts with us to build trust, to create trust, to maintain trust. Expectations, very clear expectations. They build trust. And then lastly, know that trust can be rebuilt. I want to give you 3 challenge questions to think about, share with your team, and then we will be done. Here's number 1. Who are you making earn trust that you just need to give a little trust to? What relationship, maybe it's a new coworker, new boss, new whatever, that you're looking at through this very critical filter, wondering, can they be trusted? And you just need to give them a little bit and start looking at them differently and see how that relationship changed. Number 2, are you consistent in giving clear expectations? And that's across the board, because there are some things I think I'm really good at giving clear expectations on, and there are others where not so much. We have to always give clear expectations. Never assume that the expectation is known until you have made it clear. Number 3, last one, is there someone you have chosen not to attempt to rebuild trust in that you know that rebuilding that trust is actually a real possibility? Basically, have you written somebody off without wanting any desire or any attempt to rebuild that trust? And so that's it for today's episode. Again, I would love, and it would mean so much if you would share this. I hope it adds value to you. Trust, it's a complicated thing, or is it? Hey, I'll see you on the 3rd Monday of October. I can't wait. I hope you're doing well. If you find this encouraging or adding value to your life, I'd love to hear it, man. I really do. Not for pride or boasting, but it's truly it's an honor to be able to speak into your life. And when it adds value, it means so much to me to know that that God is using this to speak into you. And so I hope you have a great